I think it's pretty important, honestly. The feeling around the ball club over the last couple of days certainly hasn't been a lot of fun, and they haven't gone about playing some very good baseball, and obviously the results have not been there, and the way that the team is losing games, the defense, the fundamentals. I know Ryan Sandberg talked about it last night. It almost feels like a lack of focus at some points, and that's not what you want. If you don't have the talent, that's one thing. But if you have guys who are out there who are making a lot of mental mistakes and making the same mistakes over and over, that's when things start to get ugly, and they certainly don't want it to get ugly early here in April.
Yeah, you're right. And obviously, one person you would say one person that you really usually count on to not make those mistakes is a guy like Utley, and he had the drop the other night. He's really struggling. Mm-hmm. Are you sensing that Utley is pressing, or that he's really at a loss at what's happening to him as he's about 120 on the season right now?
Yeah, well, I don't think Chase Utley is pressing. This is a guy that's been around for a long time. If he was a young guy, certainly I think you would wonder if he's starting to question some things. And yeah, I think that Chase is a guy, really, and I think part of the reason he's had so much success over the years is because he really is a guy that can kind of put yesterday behind him and just kind of focus on what's going to happen tonight. But the results haven't been there for him yet offensively. Sandberg was talking about it just the other day that he thinks he's been squaring some balls up and hitting a lot of line drives. He just doesn't have a lot to show for it. But, sooner or later you start to scratch your head and wonder when the balls are going to start to fall in. And, Chase is human. I'm sure he's thinking about that a little bit. But honestly, if there's a guy that I'm still not as concerned about as maybe some other guys on the team, it's Chase Utley. I just, maybe I'm misguided, but I just feel like he's going to figure it out. And when he does, then, he's going to start to creep back to where we expect him to be. But, he's going to have to do it soon. Yeah. And, he doesn't want to dig himself too big of a hole, because then it's going to be really hard to get those numbers back to where we're accustomed to.
Well, and then you wonder with a guy like him, does his mind start to drift? Not that he's a professional and focused, just that, man, do I really want to be here if things are going downhill? I mean, Jimmy Rollins had to make that decision at some point to finally say, you know what? Now's the time. You wonder if that starts to enter Utley's mind at all when he's looking around and saying, I don't know that this is going to be any better sooner than later.
Yeah, and I think, I think that Chase has kind of already decided that on his own. I mean, there was a period of time where I'm pretty sure that if he wanted to be moved, they could have moved him. And I think Chase made it pretty clear he wants to stay. So it's a little bit of a different situation with him than perhaps maybe another guy or two on the roster that would be happy to get moved to a contender. I mean, Chase, from the best that I understand, was kind of given an opportunity to make that happen and decided that he wanted to be a part of this as they kind of try to rebuild around here. So maybe he'll change his mind somewhere down the road and decide that maybe a fresh start somewhere else would be good for him. But right now, I got to believe that this is what he wanted, and he would continue to want to be here for a period of time, for sure.
Gregg Murphy's with us here from the Phillies broadcast team, Comcast Sportsnet. We'll have Phillies and the Braves, and of course, Cole Hamels allowed just one unearned run, 6 innings, but another no decision, and obviously his name is going to come up constantly, Murph, in our conversations. And are you getting the sense that he's putting any pressure to say, hey, speed this process up, or is he just hanging around until the summertime?
Well, I don't think he's putting any pressure. I think if there's one thing about these guys, for the most part, they understand it's business, and they understand it's really out of their control what is going to happen and when it's going to happen. And I think Cole understands that. If they make a decision, the team makes a decision that they're going to move him and accept one of the packages that's out there for their number one guy, then Cole will be moved. And I think if and when that happens and Cole heads to a contender, he'll be happy about that. Why wouldn't he be? But until then, I don't think he's really giving it a whole lot of thought. I'm sure it's in the back of his mind, but I think he's more interested in going out there and pitching well. He's had 2 outings that you could say were good and 2 outings that you could say were un-Cole-like. And I think that he, knowing the kind of guy he is, the kind of competitor that he is, the 2 2 games that are un-Cole-like, he wants to make sure that doesn't happen again. And, he can't do anything about run support. He can't do anything about the trade rumors. He can't do anything except go out there and pitch every 5th day. And when he does that, he wants to pitch at a very high level. So that's what I think he's concentrating on.
Murph, we talked about Utley, and I think, everybody just looks at him as this consummate professional and that he'll figure it out. And I think a lot of people are in that camp. What are the spirits of a guy like Howard? He's struggling along, too, and his name seems to get drug in the mud more so than Utley's does, fair or unfair. He seems like he's had it a lot more than Utley did, and it's tough sometimes. I mean, here's a guy who was top 5 MVP, 4 times. I mean, he won an MVP. He's hit almost 60 home. I mean, he's done so much, and yet he just can't seem to win people over. How do you think his spirits kind of are at this stage of where he is struggling?
Well, on the surface, I can tell you this, and I've had several conversations with Ryan over the past couple of weeks, and on the surface, I would say that his spirits are just fine. I mean, he certainly wants to contribute more than he is right now from an offensive standpoint, and he's working towards that for sure. Whether or not he gets there or not remains to be seen. But that said, I have to believe that it wears on him because, you just said it. Fair or not, he does seem to be the guy that kind of takes the brunt of so much of the criticism and so much of the, look where we are now kind of talk. And, I always say, well, we probably wouldn't have been where we were without him. So, he did have a pretty terrific run. And he thinks he can get back there. I don't know if he can or not, but he thinks he can, and he's kind of, made it his goal this year to show folks that he can. And, I think if you got him in a perfectly honest moment and asked him if it's been tough, I think he'd say, yeah, it has been tough, because I can't imagine that it doesn't wear on you, every day when you're hearing the critics, much more than you're ever hearing the praise that should have come his way when he was at the top of the game.
No doubt. And obviously it doesn't help, I guess, that Franco is down there ripping the cover off the ball, hitting 415 during a 9-game hit streak, and then everybody wants to see him. And obviously Ryan is kind of in the way right now of bringing a younger guy up, because obviously he's making a lot of money. It's a hard decision. I mean, is it an awkward situation, do you think, that he's kind of there and they would like to try to move him, but they really can't? There's no takers. You don't want to just cut the guy. I mean, do you feel like it's an awkward situation?
Well, I think at one point it was awkward, during the off season when the report came out that they had talked to him about, maybe we'd be better off. But since then, I think both Ryan and Ruben and Ruben's staff, they've kind of all come together and gotten back on the same page. And everybody's a realist and everybody understands the big picture. But Ryan Howard's a professional ball player. He understands and gets what's going on. At some point, there's going to be a young player that's going to come and take your job. It happened to Mike Schmidt. It happens to Steve Carlton. It happens to the greats of the game. And it's going to happen to all of these guys eventually. As a professional, you try to do your darndest to make that take as long as possible, and I think that's what Ryan's trying to do. But sooner or later, the inevitability of change is going to happen. So I don't know if it's an awkward situation. I think it's almost a natural situation, and it's one that's going to play out over the next couple of years as this team kind of changes over. So,
Murph, one bright spot so far has been Aaron Harang. He will throw tonight. And what has impressed you about him and his work ethic that some of these younger guys could really learn from?
Well, the guy just flat out knows how to pitch. And, he doesn't have the same stuff that he used to, but he doesn't need to, because he really understands how to, use both sides of the plate and elevate. And when you need to elevate, keep the ball down more often than not to get some ground outs, change speeds. And he does all those things that make a pitcher a pitcher. He did it last year with Atlanta when he won 12 games and had an ERA under 3. And we're seeing the same kind of thing. He's kind of a workhorse, a guy that just kind of goes out without any fanfare and is able to, do what needs to be done to keep his team in ball games. I don't think you're going to see him throw a no-hitter. You're not going to see him overpower guys, but he's going to keep teams in the ball game, and that's really all you can ask for a guy in his situation like Aaron Harang is. So far so good with him. He's been fun to watch. He works fast, and he gets guys to roll over on balls more often than not. And that's when he's doing that, he's going to be successful. And like I said, so far this season, he's been able to do that.
Well, of course, he is very successful when he pitches at Citizens Bank Park. The last 5 starts here, 2.25 ERA, and he'll face his former team, the Braves, tonight. Last year, he was 12-12 for Atlanta. It is Aaron Harang tonight for the Phillies at Citizens Bank Park. And Travis Wood will go for the Braves, and to see if the Phillies can get themselves going. As we just chronicled, Aaron Harang has been kind of the stopper for them. We'll see if he can continue. Greg Murphy and the broadcast team will have it tonight on Comcast Sportsnet as the Phillies take on the Atlanta Braves at 7:05. All right, Murph, thanks, man.
Thanks, Mike. Talk to you next week.